like to welcome you all to Quilting Business Success. Um, I just want the people that are listening to me right now will likely be the ones that are watching live. And you who are participating live tonight, you do have the opportunity to ask questions of our guest. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you can click on I think it should say a Q&A option there, and you can click on that and type in a question or a comment that you have, and we can share that on the show as we go. So let's give it just another minute here. Okay. All right. Well, we'd like to welcome everybody to Quilting Business Success tonight. We have with us a very special guest named Kerrie Curtis. Kerrie, we're glad to have you with us. And before we go into all of your story, which I do want you to share, tell us how you started and then where you are now and what's going on. Kerrie, where are you located now? Where's home for you?
We are in Springville, Utah.
Springfield. I think every state has a Springfield in it. Every
It's
one I've been to.
Springville, Ville, Springville,
Springville.
Utah. We're
Okay.
just south of Provo, Utah, which is where BYU is located.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. And how long have you been doing long arming?
I bought my first machine in 2013. So going on to 13, years,
Okay. So it's
13 to
been,
25. Yeah, 12,
yeah,
almost 13 years now.
excellent. And so what made you decide to start to do the long arming thing?
Well, I had been living overseas for quite a number of years, both in Japan and the Middle East. And while I was gone, my husband was teaching school for the Department of Defense. And I would make quilts during the day. So when we returned, I had quite a stack of quilts that I needed quilted. So I started calling to find a quilter to quilt for me, and they were all 4, 6, 8 weeks out. And I thought, what the heck? That, I'll forget I even left my quilt there if I, have to leave it there that long. And I thought, I want it done and back. So then I started asking the quilters about the machines and things, and they referred me to one of the Gamble people. And I went up and said, do people do this for a living? And he told me, yeah, they do. And he referred me to a couple of people that did it full time. And so I went and looked at that. And as a result, I bought myself a machine and decided that I was going to promise a 1 week turnaround. And that lasted for several months until I couldn't do it. But because I was making that promise, I either needed to get another machine or take that off my thing. So within the first 6 months, I needed that second machine, which then I did invest in a second machine. And then eventually I got a third machine. And then I happened to see a machine that was in not a yard sale, but an estate sale. And I made a bid on that with a couple other machines they had and won that bid. And that was my most, it's a good machine. Well, Gambles are all good machines, but for the price, it was a good deal. And so I ended up with 4 machines. All of them are Statler stitchers.
Okay.
And I no longer do my 1 week turnaround.
Yeah, I was
Even
wondering
with 4 machines, I've got
so
over 150 quilts sitting here waiting to be done.
how long did the 1 week turnaround last?
It lasted probably till almost Christmas time. But every year at Christmas time, we'd have a Christmas cutoff, and I'd tell them, I would get to the point where I'd say, do you need this for Christmas or can you wait till January? So we've always been able to get everything done for Christmas. And then in January, we have a whole lineup ready to go. And right now we're at about 4 weeks. but we usually try to hold it at about 2 weeks. And we stay busy enough,
Hmm.
well, there
Yeah.
was on the 15th, I counted, we got 28 quilts in one day. I don't know why the 15th was such a big day, but I couldn't get anything quilted because I was just helping people that were dropping them off.
Was that it?
And
That was in December?
no, that was
Or,
just this month on the
oh, this.
15th.
Oh,
I got
okay. I got you.
27
I got
quilts
you.
in one day, and I was like, holy cow. It's hard to get other things done when all you're doing is constantly helping people. But I do have employees, and there's been times when I've had more or less employees. It just, we'll maybe get into that. And
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
we
And the
try to keep it about 2 to 4 weeks is where we're at.
okay. Well, if there's anything when you said around Christmas time you came to a decision there, if there's anything that'll test the pudding there, the Christmas season will do it.
Yeah,
Um, I wanted to ask you, did you start out from the get-go with gamble machines, or have you had
did.
any?
I've
Okay.
always only had gamels.
And how did you arrive at that decision? Did you know about Gamels prior to that, or did you just happen
There
upon it?
was a gal who had one that I knew that I visited with, and I worked with her a little bit. She trained me on it a bit. And then I did go look at others, and they just didn't seem to be as sturdy. Um, at the time, the biggest competitor that they have here in Utah, they wouldn't do somebody gave me a heads up about this. They wouldn't have a warranty. Their warranty was voided if you used it as a business. If you use their machine for a business, their warranty was voided. And so I
Oh.
didn't want that one, but it was more of a hobby machine anyway. It wasn't the
Hmm.
Gamels just seemed more industrial and just like a
Okay.
better machine. It felt better when I'd use it. And so I
Okay.
got that first Gamel and then I needed a second one and now we have four.
So when you first started out, what did you start from the get-go to run a business, or
I
what?
did.
Oh,
I did it as
okay.
a business. Yes, that was my plan.
Okay.
Was was to have it as a business.
And do you still have, so you have four machines now,
I do.
and do you still have the same four?
I have the same four.
Okay.
Same
Excellent.
ones. We've upgraded one to an Ascend and the same four. They're all just going strong. I try to keep them serviced good. We oil them every day, sometimes twice, depending on how many hours we run them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember in the very beginning, I asked the tech that came out, I said, what's the biggest mistake people make? And he says, they don't oil it enough.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
said, well, can you over oil it? And he thought about it and he said, well, not really, but it might drip out and get on your quilts if you're not careful. And so, but we've got that pretty fine tuned and it's, we every morning we oil them. And then if we go later in the evening, we oil them again in the afternoon
Yeah.
and keep
And
them
I
oiled.
agree. Yeah, if too much oil, if it's too much oil, it won't really drip on the quilt. It usually comes out under on the
Yeah, it
bottom of
comes
the machine
underneath.
there.
Yeah.
So it'll be on your tabletop, and you can sop out extra oil in that bottom opening of the
Yeah.
machine. So
Yeah.
anyway, um, so are uh, all the machines are, you got three Statlers and one Ascend, is that right?
Yep. Three Statlers. I had four Statlers and I upgraded one of them to an Ascend
Okay.
or whatever you call it. Is it upgrade?
Yeah, yeah. There's an upgrade to the Ascend. There's also a complete retrofit to the Ascend where they just make it a totally new machine. Um, what has been your opinion of the Ascend? Has that been a positive thing?
Has and it was really good for us while we had that contract that we had to do those quilts and we only ran those on that one because she was using things like bubble meander and stipples that didn't ever have a stopping point, so it went really fast and we were able to get a lot of quilts. We've actually loaded two machines with the same design, same size, and then compared to see if it made any difference. And we could see a pretty good difference in how long it took to sew it.
Okay.
It was faster on the Ascend.
Okay.
So if you're running
Excellent.
a business, the Ascend I think it's worth it.
Yeah, particularly for people running a business, the
Yeah.
Ascend has beefier, the X and the Y motors and the
Yeah.
belts, and it's able to keep uh, accuracy at a higher rate of speed.
Yeah.
Um, Cynthia's asking me, she's getting ahead of me here. Cynthia, you're getting ahead of me. Um, she's asking how you get customers, which we're getting to that. When you first started, how did you have some customers already, or just tell us a little bit about that story
I did
at the
not. When I
beginning?
first got started, I went to a local quilt shop and I said, I would like to come in once a week for 2 hours with my stuff and advertise, do the quilts. And I do a 1 week turnaround. So I'll come in every Saturday and they can drop it off this Saturday and pick it up next Saturday. And so because it was the 1 week turnaround, that was amazing because nobody did that. I also did this. I don't know if you can see that. This is a new customer discount, and I still use this. You get 25% off on your first, not just your first quilt, but your first order. I had a lady bring me 27 quilts on her first order. She was a retired home ec teacher. And when she cleaned out her room, found all these quilts. Well, somebody had told her about this, so she brought them. She had a savings about $500, but
Wow.
she spent a lot more than that, on those 27 quilts. And since has been back many times, and not all of them are
Hmm.
that big. Some of people usually only bring one or two their first time, but once you get them in the door, if they like what you do, they keep coming back. And I am really picky about the quilting. I've had girls unpick things and they're like, it's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not okay. It's got to be perfect, you know? And
Hmm.
so I'm really fussy about what I'll let go back out the door. And the other thing we do I still have people ask me, when you get to the edge of the quilt, we trim it so it stops right at the edge instead of quilting out beyond the edge of the quilt. And I've had customers ask me, why do other quilters quilt out beyond the edge of the top? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, I do know they just don't take the time to trim it and make it stop. But customers really like that. And I actually had a lady tell me, I just bring mine back to you because I like it where it stops like that. And,
Hmm.
and well, because she self binds it, rolls over the back. And if they're going
Right.
out over that, it leaves, the stitching out there and they can't do that. Not my choice of a binding, but everybody does what they like. She can do it how she wants. So I have that. The other thing that has I picked up a lot of customers from that place. And then I got a second shop that was more up in Davis County, which is about an hour's drive. And I went up there every 2 weeks and did the 2 week turnaround. I don't go to those shops anymore, but I still have customers that drive down from Davis County to bring me their quilts that I got when I was up there. And I've got, I have mail-in customers. I have customers that drive from St. George, about a 4 hour drive,
Mm.
but they've got family up here. So they drop them off and pick them up as they pass through.
Yeah.
The other thing I have is a refer a friend thing,
Okay.
coupon, and you can find that on our website. And all it says is fill this out and give it to a friend, and your friend will receive 25% off, which is the same as if they just came the first time.
Hmm.
And then you will get a coupon for 15% off of your next quilting. And so then when somebody brings this in, I follow it up with this little card that just says, thank you. And then on the back, it just says, dear whoever, thank you for referring. And I write the name of the friend they referred, and then they can bring that in and they can get 15% off of any design that we offer, which we have a lot. And so
Okay.
they will do that. And they like that a lot. Another thing that I think brings customers back is we do what we call a design of the month. We have 10 designs for 20% off every month. And we try to choose designs that are more simple. We don't always do simple ones. I try to do seasonal ones. You know, in Father's June, I might put mechanics tools or something, which is a more difficult one, but you have to have a specific quilt for it. And even though it's on sale, I might only do it once. But like, for instance, this month, so far, everybody's picking Yodel, and that one moves right along, really fast. And, we put holidays and different things. I've kind of loaded up on this Christmas and holidays because
So if they pick one of these patterns, they get 20% off.
20% off of just their quilting. They still pay full price for the batting and the backing and the other things that they do, but they'll get 20%. So if it's $100 quilting job, they get it for 80.
Okay.
And they do, that's quite popular. I have people call me and say, if for some reason my daughter hasn't got it posted on the website or something, they'll call and say, your design of the month's aren't on the website yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
I have one question. Who are you sending the new customer coupon to? Facebook or
the new customer coupon is on my website, and I have posted it on Facebook before. They can print that off. And I've even had customers that'll just take this coupon and they'll write on it referred by. So I know who referred them. The other thing I do is I'll ask the customer when they come in, if it's a new customer, I'll say, who referred you? And they'll say, oh, Bonnie so-and-so referred me. And so I'll just make a note of it. And then I will automatically send this to her. And then she's thrilled that I gave that to her.
Right.
And that makes them happy and makes them more loyal, and they just keep coming back.
So, Kerrie, going to the beginning there, it sounds like you kind of started out Quilting Guild and putting your name out there a little bit, and I picked up that you have attention to detail, and so the quality of work that you have done. Do you think that a lot of the customers that you have gotten from the get-go have just been repeat customers and stayed with you?
I have a lot of repeat customers.
And word of mouth, is that a big thing?
Word of mouth is probably the biggest way of getting them.
Okay.
I do have a presence on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not very good at it. And
is the internet stuff, is that how big of a factor is the internet stuff with you?
It's important to post my designs of the month, and that has brought me new customers because they'll see something and they'll want it, and then they go there and see that they can get 25% off, and that gets them there the first time. And it went well. I've had a couple of viral moments but it wasn't because of me. We did when Jenny Doan came to do a trunk show here, they called and asked me if I'd advertise it and they'd give me a free ticket. And I said, well, I'll buy a second one, and then I'm going to do a promotion and give away a free set of tickets. And then they said, oh, if you're going to do that, we'll give you the 2 free tickets, for it. And so we did a thing where if they did a like or did this or that, they got a free ticket to go into our raffle for these tickets. And oh my gosh, I've watched my followers increase by hundreds within minutes.
Wow.
But it was because they wanted to go to the Missouri, Jenny Doan's show. And that's been a few years. But those people are still following me. And a lot of those, and I got quite a few of those from, that would mail their quilts in to me and things. And I've had quilts mailed in to me from our website. My son has set up our website, and it's got an order now button that you push, what they call the action button. And they can just fill out the form and submit it, and then they print it off and mail it to me. And I get 2 or 3 quilts a week and I don't even advertise. So if someone were to take it and actually do advertising, they could probably do pretty darn good. And
Did you have somebody do your website, or how did
my
you?
daughter is a web designer.
Okay, okay,
So my kids, I have all techie kids, and she's a web designer. My son is my CPA. My daughter, she does all the social media. There's been a couple of times I've tried to hire people to do social media, and all that did was frustrate me because I felt like I had to spell check everything, or they would post something and use the wrong wording that quilters wouldn't use. And so then I thought it made me look like an idiot, because they were posting that this design is only $65 when it wasn't the design, it was the quilt kit that would, they would just
gotcha.
word it wrong. And so I've just found it was better to have it done in-house or find someone
Okay.
that knew the quilt lingo.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we'll have an opportunity at towards the end of this podcast to if to allow you to give your information if people want to get in touch with you,
Okay.
and because I know you have alluded to the fact that you have some plans of what maybe retiring or something, and we'll share a little bit more about that at the end.
Yeah.
And also, and if anybody wants to get in touch with you and find out what resources you have used, I do want to mention while we're on this subject, though, that anybody who is either in the process of starting a business or thinking about it, the Accelerate program that we have at Gamble, you can find that, and that is specifically for helping people who are doing businesses or starting out in business to give them in touch with the resources that they need.
Yeah.
So anybody that is asking about that, we can look for the Accelerate. Okay, Kerrie, before we go too far on, when you first started getting you forget your first Gamble,
Uh-huh.
how did you start out? How did you have the funds to start out getting your first Gamble?
We had some savings
Okay.
and we used that to buy our first gamble. The second gamble, we didn't. I did take out a loan on my second gamble. And the third one, and a small loan on the fourth one, although it was a lot less. But I also have a son who is an accountant and a CPA. And so at this point, I mean, we focused on getting those paid off. So at the moment, at this point, we're 100% debt free.
Awesome.
And we focused. He does a program. He's I don't have his card with me, but he does. It's Curtis Accounting Solutions, and he pieces together financial freedom for quilt shops. And he's got most all of his, probably 95% of his clients are quilt shops from all over the
Okay.
United States. So he has a lot of good insight on how to run it. And he has a program where he pays a profit first, and then you run your business on everything that's left. And it's kind of like a envelope system. And so we really focused hard on just being debt free and not having to, I could just close now and I don't have to worry about
Debt
any,
free.
yeah, with paying anything off. And that's been a really a it's lifted a burden, how are we going to make that payment? That was always burdensome. But once that's,
Gotcha.
yeah, but I couldn't have done it without taking out a loan on those first couple machines. The first one we
Gotcha.
just bought. The next couple we borrowed on, but
And FYI for those watching, you most definitely Gamble can hook you up with financing. Um, Deborah is asking you, Kerrie, what is that CPA information again that you were sharing?
that's accounting solutions.
Say that one more time. It's cut out just.
Curtis Accounting Solutions.
Okay.
.com. You can find him on the website. Say, I've got a card here and she can contact me. I'll give my contact
Okay.
information and I can
Okay.
send her that information.
And yeah, and people can contact you with
Yeah.
the information that you'll give at the end. So, when you start, did you have another job when you started, or has it been this all along?
Well, we had been overseas, like I told you. And then when I came back, I went to work at a middle school as a teacher's aide. But
Okay.
after a year of doing that, I thought there's got to be something better than working with middle school kids all day. And so, but then at the same time, I was trying to find a quilter. And so at the end of the year, I quit that job because I wasn't enjoying those middle school kids. And then I bought that first machine and just took off from there.
You weren't enjoying the middle school kids, huh? That's
No, I was not. It wasn't just the middle school kid. It was just not the special needs, but they called it the focus class. It was the middle school kids who were wearing ankle bracelets, that were in youth programs, the delinquent,
oh,
and they were really hard. And
yes. That's a bit of a red flag when they have ankle bracelets on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
And so, it was just, I
yes.
wasn't in there alone with them. There was always a teacher, and they usually came with their group person that was in charge of them, but they were still difficult. And, there was middle school.
Gotcha.
So then during that summer, I ended that job. And then I just started going to the quilt shops and trying to and that 1 week turnaround to start off is what I think a 2 week turnaround would do the same thing. I was a bit naive about that 1 week turnaround, but we did it for quite a while.
Yeah, when you first mentioned that 1 week turnaround, I'm thinking that's quite ambitious there. So,
I was
um,
quilting a lot of hours. I still am.
I bet. Speaking of which, how many hours do you put in these days, or have you in the last couple of years? Like, what's your like weekly average or so?
Now we have a storefront. We have a place with the 4 machines in it, and we open at 10 o'clock and we close at 5, but we're usually here by 8 o'clock. So from 8 till 5 every day. Well, Monday through Friday. When my husband started working with me, we decided to close on Saturday because we just needed a weekend. Otherwise there
Gotcha.
was one of us here and we didn't quilt on Saturdays, but we would help the customers take quilts in and do pickup and drop offs on Saturday. And we do have a wall of, probably about 250 basics and blenders. I don't buy fabric lines. I just buy the solids and basics and blenders. And then I've got 150 wide backs, and we do sell quite a few wide backs. And people have gotten to the point they'll walk in without a back, and I'll say, "Oh, you need that quilt?" And they're like, "Yeah, but I got to find my back first." And they'll, so that's been nice to have that available to the customers because they don't have to run all over town looking for their back.
Right.
So
Um, so how many people do you have working for you?
at the moment, there's me, my husband, and one other gal who has been with me for about 6 years. There have been times when I've had 5 girls that worked for me. And they're in the fall when we're really busy, I've even had girls that come in after school. I have had a couple of high school girls that were fabulous, and they're great with the computer stuff. That's not a problem at all for them. And
Yeah.
I have a teacher at one of the schools here that brings their kids here on a field trip to show them that you can do a business in textiles or whatever, and so a couple of times she's had students that have asked, do you have some, do you ever hire for the summer? So there's been a couple of times I've hired girls and then they just stayed on and they'd come in after school and keep quilting, like in the fall when we're getting all the Christmas stuff in. And so the full-time people would leave and then they would stay for a few more hours and quilt into the evening more. And so I've had as many as, I think the most employees I've had besides myself was 5. And
Okay.
and that was nice because then I had people that could take care of it while I went and did whatever, if I needed to go see family or whatever.
Gotcha. As far as the quilting that you do, do you do all edge to edge? Do you do anything besides edge to edge?
My customers, we only do edge to edge.
Okay.
There are lots of girls out there that'll do, I mean, you see them all over Instagram and, doing their custom work. And we have a lot of, I have names of people I can refer them to if they want custom.
Okay.
And all of them are gamel people. And,
Okay.
but if they want the edge to edge, and in fact, I've got some that if people come in and want edge to edge, they refer them to me and I refer them to them for their custom stuff. And, so we work together back and forth that way. And,
Okay.
but I play for I might come in on Saturday and do my own custom work.
Gotcha.
You
Gotcha.
know, you can't, I know how, but I don't do it for the customers. We are
Yeah.
the utilitarian quilters. We quilt for the new baby, for the people who want quilts that they're going to use. They're not
Hmm.
wanting me to quilt them a showpiece. They
Right.
just want
Right.
it quick and inexpensive. And I don't know
Gotcha.
that it's inexpensive. We charge 2 cents a square inch.
Okay. And so you basically go by the square inch
Yeah.
for, okay. Simple. Um, so how many do you know? I mean, do you know how many quilts you do per year or how many you have done? What kind of
Yes.
quantity
I
you
can
put out?
figure it out. Well, because I have an accountant son, he calculated how many we have to do 10,000 square inches per day per machine. So 40,000 square inches per day. And that's how we calculate it is by the square inches. And so that averages, well, 100 by 100 is 10,000 square inches. So we'd have to do 4 queens per day, but they're not all that big. So we average when we're going with everybody on board and everybody's working, we can do between 8 and 12 quilts a day. And I mean, I'm talking every size, table runners all the way up to big quilts.
Mm,
So you can do a whole bunch of table runners in the same time that you can do one, you know,
wow.
king size quilt.
Yeah. So that's
I,
a lot of volume.
yeah. And we just
Um,
run them through. We keep a calendar. I didn't bring that over here, but when I had a full staff of girls, every quilt they took off, they had to write the name of the customer on the calendar and how many square inches it was. And if they met that 40,000 square inches per day, if we got 200 square inches in a week, then we would buy them lunch on Monday. And we were buying
wow.
lunch on Monday for them a lot.
Nice.
So
Mary is asking, do you charge for extras, thread, trimming the quilt? Do you have, and you did mention wide backs, binding, piecing. Yeah.
I
Tell us about that.
I don't trim their quilts for them, but I will let them use our tables and trim it if they want to trim it themselves. And then I was gonna say, I don't know if we can see this, but
You got all kind of visual effects here.
yeah,
Okay.
but these are my charges and fees. I've got a minimum charge of 50 per quilt. I don't care if it's this 12 by 12 or what. It's got to be 2,500 inches is $50. And so if it's under that, you're just going to get charged $50. Edge to edge is 2 cents. We do not offer custom quilting. Binding is 23 cents per linear inch, and that's hand stitched on. I don't do that. I have 2 ladies that I trade with. They do so I charge the customer for their binding and just give them the invoice like regular. And then I have I keep a running thing with my 2 binders that I have. I have a couple of ladies that are retired, and I keep track of I pay them almost all of the 23 cents per square inch. I think I pay them 20 cents. And then I calculate what I owe them, and then I just invoice their quilts like normal and take it off of that, and we just trade. And so they like that deal. If I sew their backing, it's $15 per seam. And if it needs more than one seam, it's going to be more. If I need to sew strips on the back so it makes it big enough that I can load it, the first side's $10, additional sides are $5. If they want a design that I don't already own, and I've got over 1,500 edge-to-edge designs, if they can't find something that's going to work, then I'm going to charge them. I put $16, but I usually just charge them whatever it is, the cost, the actual cost of
Right,
that.
right.
And I do a rush fee. If you want it in 1 week, within the week, it's a $50 rush fee. A 2-week rush fee is $40. We don't do that one very often, but I've got a couple of people that pay that rush fee every time, which to me is bizarre, but they want it back. If they want to pay me 50 extra bucks, and
There
I
you
can
go.
do that because I'm not putting anybody else behind. I've got the 4 machines, so I just throw it on one of the machines and everything else is still going. So I don't feel like it really affects the, backing up everybody else. And there's not a lot of people that will pay that, but there are enough to make it
Well,
worth offering.
it sounds like you have a successful business that's humming along there, and you've kind of got it worked down to a science. Um, if you looking back now, not just today or this year, but the whole path of these last 13 years that you've been on, what would you say has been the hardest part of growing your business?
Employees
Well, say
and
that again. It cut off right at the beginning.
finding good employees. That to me has been the hardest part. I've had some really good employees, some excellent employees, and then there's others that come in and they're just going through the motions. They don't care, and that's good enough. I'm not going to unpick that. That's good enough, and it's not. And they'll unpick, well, they don't usually unpick it. I do because they're too slow. I can out unpick anybody, I think, but finding, and that wasn't so bad in the first half, that first 6 or 7 years, it was pretty good. But since I don't know what was the change, but now everybody wants to make $25 an hour. And I can't afford that. Maybe I need to charge more. I don't know, but they'll come in and I think I've got one and I'll make them an offer and they'll be like, oh, no, I can't do that. I've got to make at least $22 an hour. Well, that's not what this industry pays, and go work at McDonald's. They'll pay you more, maybe, but that's been my hardest thing is trying to find good employees, but they're out there and I've had some really good ones. In fact, there's some I've tried to get to buy my business, but they're not interested. They know how much work it is.
Right. And I think that employee uh, thing that you're talking about it's kind of it's all over the whole nation and world these
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
it's everywhere. So I think that's common to everywhere. Um, Before we move on toward the end here, Mary was also asking, she appreciated the great information on the pricing, but as a follow-up, do you charge 2 cents for all pantographs, even dense ones?
On how dense they want it. I've got a lot of examples in my shop. You can see them hanging everywhere. And I look at it and I say, okay, do you like what I've done? Because this is what it's going to be similar to this. If you want it tighter than this, then I'm going to have to charge you more for tighter. And for what my customers are doing, they're usually happy with what we do. And I use what I call a 1-inch rule. I try to keep the spacing between the lines about 1 inch. Of course, some are going to be a little bigger and some are going to be tighter. But, I put up that 3-inch square and make sure there's at least 3 lines that go through it. And, I'll change it on when I'm training the girls, I'll change it from, a 1-inch graph to a 3-inch graph and say, this is how it is. We also, on every one of our machines, have a list of things that we have to go through. And the very, have you, checked the thread? Have you done this? Have you done that? Is the quilts both on the same way? Is one vertical and the back horizontal? That's not going to work, and we have this whole list that we go through. And the very last question is, has 2 people checked it? And that has saved, doing double checking with every quilt with that many employees has really saved us a lot of unpicking. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, Kerrie, looking back on your journey, can you tell us 2 things? Who has been your biggest cheerleader / support, and how important is that part of it?
What comes to mind are my customers. They've always been very encouraging, very supportive. I have one customer that every time she comes in, she's like, wow, I can't believe, how much you've grown. And they do keep coming back. But my family, of course, they've been a big support. I've got my son that does all my financing. He does everything. He does payroll, he does taxes, he does everything. All I have to do is be here and take the payments. And everything's done online, and he does everything that way. I've got, my daughter's a web designer. My other daughter worked with me through the birth of 3 babies, and now she doesn't do, we kept one here until he got to the point where he'd climb up on the machines and want to ride them, And I do notice that my grandkids, other kids will come in and people will want to look at the machines and they're kind of timid and afraid of the machines. My grandkids, my kids want to get up there and do it. Fortunately, if they do obstruct it, it just stops. So
Nice.
but my family, I've had, my daughter worked for me. I had another daughter-in-law that did a lot of the social media for me for quite some time. And so my family has been a big support. So.
Awesome. Do you rent your machines or no?
No, I don't have time to rent my machines.
Sounds like they stay pretty busy.
Yeah, people ask me all the time if we start these machines up by 8 o'clock every morning, and all 4 of them are running till 5 o'clock.
Gotcha.
And we're unloading them and loading them back up as fast as we can. In fact, I time it. I'll say, okay, we got this one just ended. We got 20 minutes to get it going. And so we keep them moving right along pretty, all day long, as fast as we can keep them going. If the machine ain't running, we're not making money.
True.
That's what I always tell the kids. If the machine's not running, we're not making money. So we try to keep them going.
Another question. Is there a piece of information or something that you wish somebody would have told you when you first started?
I don't think so. Customers can be difficult. People say to me all the time, oh, you're so lucky to work with quilters. Quilters are the best people in the world. And sometimes I think, unless you quilt for them,
Oh, I love your honesty and transparency.
That's it's just human nature. People are
Yes,
people. And it
that's
doesn't
right.
matter what industry or you're in, you're going to get people that aren't happy all the time with everything. And I've had some that have not been very nice. And I had a lady that was so mad at me because I hadn't centered the quilt the way she had asked me to. And she had put a frame on the back of her backing. and she wanted it to be even on all the way around. Well, the top was came over about 2 inches on the top and bottom, but the sides didn't reach the frame. So I just centered it. So she had 2 inches at the top and 2 inches at the bottom. And then I quilted it. I centered it like she asked me to do. So it was even. It was even. There was 0 on these sides. And, anyway, she saw that didn't have any frame. And I explained to her, it wasn't wide enough. Well, you should have told me. You should have, and I'm like, well, I centered it. I meant, and then when she went to fold it up, she was just mad and she was throwing it. She wouldn't even let me fold it up. Like she just folded it up. And she folded the back over, and on the seam on the back, there was a little white streak. And she's like, and what is this? And I looked at it and I went, oh, well, you didn't cut your selvage off. And when you sewed your backing, you left a little white streak of the selvage in there. Oh my gosh. Then she lost it. But we put them on upside down. We hadn't noticed it. If I had noticed it, I'd have probably sewed it, fixed it. But I hadn't noticed it. And so then she was so mad. And then she texted me for 3 days, asked me how I was going to, compensate her for ruining her quilt, blah, 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 blah. Finally, I called my son and said, what do we do? And he said, I'll just refund it, which I did. And I refunded. She had 3 quilts. So I just refunded the whole thing. My son says, that's easier. She paid with a credit card. We'll just refund it. She wasn't happy with our service. So then I called her and said, I just wanted to let you know that you weren't happy with our services, so I've refunded it. She says, well, I would have paid for the other 2. And I said, well, this was just easier. You were unhappy with our services, so I refunded it for you. And then she got all mad at me because I wouldn't let her pay me. So, but I just kept going to, you were unhappy with our services and we guarantee our services and you were unhappy, so I've refunded it. Well, about 4 weeks later, we're all in here working, and one of the younger gals that works for me, all of a sudden she's like, oh, Kerrie, is that? And I'm looking out, I'm like, yep, it is. And she opened the back of her truck or her car, and she got out this great big, huge, $60 geranium. And it was in the spring when all the nurseries have all their big flowers out. And she come over and everybody had run and hid from her. And she opened the door and she said, Kerrie, can I talk to you out here? And I said, yeah. So I went out and she apologized and told me she was sorry that nothing I had done was her fault. And she had some cash and she wanted to give me the flower. Would I accept this flower as an apology? And I said, yes, and took it. And she said, and can I pay you for the quilts? And she had some $100 bills. And I said, yes, I'll accept your payment, and so she stuck that in. She says, and I said, I appreciate, that you came and talked to me about it. And she says, well, I have one more question. And I said, what's that? And she says, I've got about 9 more quilts that need quilted. Will you still quilt for me? And I said, yeah. And she doesn't live too far from our shop. I said, if you want to go get them and bring them down, we'll go over them and get them quilted for you. And she says, oh, I've got them right here in my trunk. So
Wow.
So, that time it turned out okay, but I've had other instances where people haven't been happy and
right.
but
well, there's always instances where you have to deal with difficult people in this world.
Difficult, but I've also done things where I've messed up and people are just as nice as can be about it, and but I usually give them a discount. I do my best to make it right. Well, I quilted the wrong design on a quilt once. I quilted splat instead of splash. They're similar. And it was for her camper, and it was a camper quilt, and both of them worked just fine on it.
Yes.
When she picked it up, well, I realized that I had done it wrong before I picked it up. So before she picked it up, so I contacted her and I said, I made a mistake. I did this, and I've done the wrong one, wrong design, but I want you to look at it. If you like it, if you're okay with it, then I won't charge you. You can just take it free of charge because it was the wrong design. It was my mistake. And then I said, but if you really don't want it and you want me to change it, I'll unpick it and redo it with the design you wanted. And then she came in and she looked at it and she goes, oh, well, that's kind of cute. And I said, well, then, you can take it. I won't charge you because I messed up. And she said, no, I don't feel good about that. And she put a $50 bill in my hand and ran off with her quilt. It was a
Nice.
bigger quilt than that, but so she got a good
Yes.
discount. But there have been times I've made mistakes, and I usually try to be honest. One time I ripped a hole in one and I couldn't find another piece to replace it. It was an older antique quilt, and usually when it goes into a seam, it'll stop it. But this fabric was so gentle, it was so fragile
Weak.
that it
Yeah.
just went through and just ripped a hole in it. I
Mm.
went to thrift stores. I went everywhere trying to find a fabric that would compare and that I could replace it with. And I couldn't. Finally, I just repaired it the best I could. When she came to pick it up, I told her, but we couldn't find it. We finally did find it. And she said, "Oh my goodness, I would have never even known. You shouldn't have told me." But I believe that you need to be honest and transparent with people. What if she had found it later and thought, what the heck did she do? And I hadn't told
Right.
her about it. So
Yeah.
when I do make mistakes, I have ripped people's quilts before. I called a lady once and I said, but it was in one piece. And I said, "Do you have some more of this fabric?" And she said, "Oh, I do." She said, "Do you want me to come and get it and fix it?" I said, "No, I want you to bring the fabric and I will fix it." And so she brought it in. I took it out, cut a new piece and sewed it in and fixed it for her. So I always just go above and beyond what they expect, you
Yeah.
know, and what a lot of people would do to keep them happy. And they keep coming back.
Well, Kerrie, I appreciate, the stories in which, negative things have happened, I think are the most useful to a lot of the people that are watching this
Yeah.
podcast. We are we're getting close to the end, but I wanted to talk with you. You had mentioned uh, alluded to the fact that you might do be retiring. Tell us what's going on and what are your plans at this point?
Well, at this point, I am over retirement age. Um, and I just want to have some time to quilt my bucket list of quilts. I don't do a lot of piecing for myself. I do kits and things that we sell, but there's a lot of quilts that I've seen. I will see quilts and then I order the pattern, but I never get a chance to sew it because I'm always here doing. And
Mm,
so I want to retire. The other thing I want to do is my kids will call and say, "Hey, meet us at the Grand Canyon. We're going to camp for a week." Well, I can't. I have this business, or I will have, just I can't. I just feel tied down to it. And I'm just at that age. I'm tired. I'm ready to retire. My husband's retired. That's why he's helping me now. And we're just ready to retire. So we have had the business for sale. So if you know anyone or if you're interested in buying it, we love to give anybody any information that is interested. And I am going to
okay.
retire at the end of the year, whether I sell it the business or if I just sell the machines, and sell the
Okay.
stuff I have. So if anybody's interested in any of the machines or any of the, products I have or the shelving or anything, they can contact me. Well, they can call me directly at 310-7714. And that is the business phone. So I answer that one during the day. And you can
Okay.
find that also on my website, that phone
Okay.
number.
Give us that phone number again.
Okay, 801-310-7714. That
Okay.
door alarm went off. 801-310-7714.
Okay. And
Or you
what's
can find us.
Facebook or email? Tell us what
We're
else
on
you got.
Utah Valley Quilting at gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and I will reply to any of the direct messages. Or if you don't know how to do that, just say, "Hey, Kerrie, contact me," and I'll contact.
Okay. And Facebook and Instagram is just Kerrie Curtis.
No, it's Utah Valley Quilting.
Yeah, Utah Valley Quilting. Okay.
Yeah, Utah Valley Quilting
Okay.
on both Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And
Okay. Excellent.
or if they want to contact you guys, you're welcome to give them my information as well. I don't know if they can, if that's something you guys want to do, but I would.
Yeah. Well, I will, those
They
that are
can
watching this
find,
podcast, I will point them to contact you via this information
yeah,
that
on
you've
all of
given us.
those, Facebook, Instagram, and my website, you can find the phone number.
Okay.
So
Excellent. Excellent. So you're going to be retired by the end of the year, huh?
I've told the landlord we'll be out of here by December 31st.
Okay. So if anybody's looking for a quilting business that's already ready to go
Turnkey,
uh,
just walk in and take over.
in Utah, give
Yep.
them a holler. And we
Utah's a
have,
great place.
yes, yes, it's a good place. Been there many times. Okay. Well, Kerrie, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun talking to you today, and we sure appreciate it. And we wish you the best in retirement when that time comes up. And I'm pretty sure that you will have people contacting you. I just want to say thank you very much. It's been great talking with you.
Well, it's good
And
seeing you again.
yes, yes, good talking to you. And yeah, you've made it another unique episode of Quilting Business Success. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end this program. Thank you, Kerrie, and thank you for those of you who have been with us tonight. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.